We, in this universe, do not have the ability, however much we would love to control other people's lives. Now, I'm trying to get you out of this thing and jar our heads out of this attitude and the guilt around not being a perfect parent and making your kids do exactly as you know they should do. All right, Danny, my son, ran away, and I was out chasing him at night. And I would go to work and I'd be all bummed out because I hadn't had any sleep. And then he'd come home. I'd find him and I'd bring him home. And he would sleep like till 3 to 9 the next morning or something, 3 in the morning to 9. Then he'd get up and have a shower and run away again after he'd eaten and loaded up with goodies. And I'd be at work, staggering around trying to do something. And I would come home. One time, this actually happened. I came home and I said, "Hi, Danny." And I went upstairs. And he had run away by the time I came back downstairs just to change the clothes from work. And this was a nightmare of the first order. I would find him stoned out behind the movies. I would find him in drainage ditches. I would find him in cars. He would break into homes. He totaled the car. He would go to jail. I mean, this kid was a real project. And everything I did didn't work. And I was going nuts. I can see how people actually have a nervous breakdown. I can see how a man, after not just 1 or 2 nights, but after weeks and months of this, even years of this kind of thing, you just get worn out. And the other kids are saying, "When do we get any attention? When do we get some stuff from mom and dad?" My whole life was an obsession, thinking about this boy and how to keep him from killing himself. Judges, probation, everything in the world you can imagine. So now Danny, through largely my tracing and running around and investigating, I found out that he had broken the law in this place and this place and this place. And every time they'd break the law, there's a whole bunch of cities down there in Southern California. And whenever he'd break the law in city A, they didn't communicate with city B, C, D, and E, where he'd already broken the law. And they would let him go. Then he'd be arrested and let go, arrested and let go, arrested and let go, arrested and let go. And it went on and on and on. And finally we started getting onto this. And he got arrested for something pretty big and he was being held in jail. And I was running around trying to get all these different towns to send their stuff so the district attorney would have a real case. Do you understand? I was trying to get control here. And so we're in the court. And the court is in session. And we wait for a few days until our turn comes up. Spent a lot of time in court and jail. The first time I went to jail, I was humiliated. I went up to I'm here to see Daniel, get Daniel, my son, blah, blah, and they got it. After a while, it was just, "Hi, John. Hi, Harry. How you doing? Oh, Jones is here. Go get Danny." I mean, this is not a pleasant thing. And now here we are. We're in court again. And the DA and all that. Now they've got a big stack of stuff on Danny. How many places he's broken into and defrauded the bank, been taking $200 a day out of somebody's, what do they call that, ATMs? He got the lady's purse and she had her number written on it. For her card. He was just pulling money out every day. Hey, greatest thing since sliced bread, right? Why go to work? Dad goes to work. That's stupid. I can just go to the bank and get $200 a day. Now he was in chains with his buddies. Literally, his feet and hands were in chains, hooked in with all these other criminals. And day after day, finally our turn comes up. And they say, "Is Mr. Jones in the courtroom?" And I stood up. "Yes, Your Honor, I'm here." Well, they said, "Is the parents of Daniel Jones in the courtroom?" I said, "Yes." And I stood up. Say, "We're now going to release this minor into the custody of his parents. Mr. Jones, will you take responsibility for your son, Daniel Jones?" And I stood there and I heard myself talk. And I said, "No, Your Honor." And the courtroom went absolutely deathly silent. As this rotten, hateful parent was going to allow their little sweetheart son to be hauled off to jail. "No, Your Honor." "Why is that?" "Well, Your Honor, if I take the boy home, he will not do what I say. And before the sun goes down today, this boy will be on the street and he will be doing drugs. And he'll be breaking into people's houses. He'll be committing felonies and I can't control him. He will not listen to us." The judge says, "Mr. Jones, if you do not take your son home today, we'll remand him over to the bailiff and they will take your son to jail and he will stay in jail until 90 days hence when his court case comes up." And I just grinned. "Now, will you take responsibility for your son?" "I cannot, Your Honor." And they hauled Danny off. And Danny hated me for that. And I would go visit him. And he would abuse me like a fool. I went to every single thing, every minute I could spend with him to show him that I loved him and we weren't the bad, horrible people that he thought we were. And I was standing on my head, to try to prove that I was good, trying to overcome my guilt. And he was yelling and screaming one day, and I decided I'm not coming back anymore. And I didn't. My wife didn't agree with that. I said, I'm not going back and be abused by this guy. He hates me. And so one day when I decided that, I was about 5 minutes to go, and he was yelling at me. And he was telling me how stupid I was. And I looked at my watch and I says, Danny, I may be real stupid, but in 5 minutes, I'm leaving. And they're keeping you. Why don't you think about that? And I left, and I didn't show up for a while. Hurt my wife's feelings. But why should I submit myself to that abuse? Go there and have him holler at me and tell me how stupid I was and blah, 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 and rah, rah, rah. So hostile and so angry. So now the court was this. Danny had a big thing, and he's going to go to jail now. For a long time, like 18 months or something. First offenses, second offense, all this big stack of stuff is up on him now. And this will be his first hard time. He's been in juvenile hall and spent like 90 days in juvenile hall and done this bad stuff, but not real jail. You understand, there's a difference. And he was going to go to jail, and I'd already been working real hard to try to get him in drug rehab. I want to tell you people, when a kid gets on drugs, somebody else goes inside their body. Their eyes go dark. Their personality changes. It's not even your same person anymore. It's somebody else. It's like they're possessed or something. And they are gone. And it is miserable. And they hate you. And so there we were. Danny, you have a choice here. We understand that the such and such drug rehab place will take you. It's a full residency program. If you decide to go to drug rehab, we will suspend your sentence. And on a day-by-day thing, you can go to drug rehabs. But if you run away, in 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, you will come back to jail and you will serve your time. Do you understand that, Dan Jones? Yes, I do. Do you want to go to drug rehab? Yeah, I want to go to drug rehab. So we took him to drug rehab. And that kid conned everybody. I'm serious. They thought that he was the greatest kid that ever came through their program. He went up through their ranks. He knew what to tell them. They thought he was wonderful. And I warned them, he's conning you. But they didn't believe it. They figured Mom and Dad were absolutely nuts because of the stories he was telling them. And I could tell by the questions they asked us and how the counselors looked at us that what he must be telling them. And then finally, when the time's up, he ran away and went back on the street, was doing drugs, got into hardcore criminal thing. It was making drugs, okay? Acid and stuff. But what I want to tell you here is Danny was sitting in this circle, and we were in family therapy in this drug rehab place. We'd been in there a couple months probably. And Danny was out of his chair trying to impress everybody, trying to make everybody believe how bad his parents were. And he's yelling at us. And the counselor's here, and I'm here, and Lily's here, and Danny's out of his chair doing his act. Leave me alone. Let me have my own life. I am entitled to my own life. And finally, it ended up like this. Don't you get it? Leave me alone. It's my life. If I want to do drugs or I want to kill myself, I can do anything I want. Leave me alone. Stop trying to control me. Was he right? Was I trying to control him? Yep. Absolutely. At that point in my progress, I would have taken away his freedom. I would have made sure I made every decision for this kid to make sure that he survived teenage time. And I said, I'm not controlling your life. I said, I haven't brought you here. It isn't my decisions that have got you here, and I'm not controlling your life. He said, well, you would if you could. And he was absolutely right. He hit the nail right on the head. Yes, you're right. In fact, I told him, Danny, just let us make the decisions. Just have faith in us and do what we say, and we will survive this time. No. See, he didn't want to get along with anybody. He didn't want to be happy with anybody. He wanted to fight. He wanted to be mad for whatever reason it was. And I could not accept that. I felt that if I prayed hard enough, or if I came up with some miracle, it was my responsibility as a parent to get inside this kid's head and change him. I couldn't do it. We have human limitations, all right? And I can't do that. The universe isn't set up so I can do that. All right, so here's what happened. Danny says, let me live my life. And I stood up and I said, Danny, you can live your life. From this day forward, I give you your life. And I stood up and I kind of was gesturing. And I took the burden off of my shoulders like this. And I said, Danny, from this day forward, this is your life. You take your life. You run with it. You're responsible for it. And I'm throwing you out in the deep sea with the sharks and the barracuda, and they're going to kill you. And as I look back on it now, I realized that I was processing his death. That I was anticipating he was going to die. And I told him, you're going to die. They're going to kill you. You think you're so smart. You are your worst enemy. And you're going to end up dead like some of your friends. He says, let me alone. Let me live my own life. I said, you got it. You do what you want. You can live your own life. And he says, I can live my own life. I can do what I want. I said, you have been. Now, there was this girl that he had been going with. Okay? This was a girl that had very poor morals. And I didn't want my son around her. Later on, she got pregnant. But Danny was in jail. So jail isn't always that bad. Right? He was in jail. But later on, that's after his association with her. But I was fearful for this. And I saw this. Dad sensed this. We can pick up on that. We know when a gal's on the prowl, don't we? You can pick that up. It's pretty obvious when they're 14. I says, there's this one girl you need to stay away from, Dan. He said, which one? And I said, little Susie. And what did that do, people? It just drove them together like glue on wood. And they would walk up and down in front of our house, holding hands. And this went on for months. I think it was like 2 years. And I would run from window to window in my house, and I would watch them. And they would walk back, and I would just, oh, no, no. Do you get it? I was a little puppet on a string. Punch the button. Watch Daddy jump. Punch the button. Watch Daddy worry. Watch Daddy stay up all night. Every day we had this insane battle. I was trying to protect my son from killing himself, and he was trying to destroy himself. Who won the battle every day? Who won? He won the battle every single day of his life. And I didn't have enough sense to realize what was going on. I want you to understand that I was blinded. I was blinded by my emotion, by my guilt that told me that I was being a failure as a father. I wasn't doing good. That I should be able to reach this boy if I really loved him. And it was me that was on trial, not him. And all the doubts. And I thought of every time I'd been unkind. Every time I wouldn't let him do what he wanted to do or something. You understand? Miss Disneyland. Big deal. Now I'm going to destroy a kid's life? Baloney. So we have all this guilt and go back through it. I did this and I didn't do that and I didn't do that. Boy, you just torture yourself. And anyway, there's this girl he's been going with. And he says, I can live my own life? I said, yes. And he said, if you'll let me live my own life, will you give me permission to marry Susie? You mean the Susie, the streetwalker Susie? Yeah. Yes. Did he just kill me? Boom. Shot me right through the brains. Is that a good retort? Do you think that's a powerful answer? He's saying, I'll call you, old man, and raise you 10. You'll let me live my life? Give me permission now to marry Susie. And I was in the spirit. I said, you want to marry Susie? God bless you, my children. You deserve each other. Yes, marry Susie. I will give you permission this instant. Marry her. You lucky boy. And my wife went, ah! Oh, so I could hear her squeak over here. He says, Dad, you're kidding. I says, no, marry her. Just live far, far away from us. No, you go on. Be happy. What had they been talking about all this time? If just their wicked old stinky lousy parents would let them marry, they could be happy. Is that true? Teenage love? Pardon me. And he said, will you let me marry? And I said, marry her. Go forth and be happy, my son. Yes, marry her. And he went like this. He rubbed the temples and he says, he really thought about it. Marry her? What had been going on for 2 years? Torturing Papa. Marry her? Marry her? And he just went like this. No, Dad, I don't even like her. She's a fruitcake. And I almost fell right out of my chair. What had the issue been all this time? Control. Control. And tormenting Dad as long as he tried to control. For the first time, he now had the responsibility. Who had the responsibility about marrying her before? I did. I had it. I was maintaining, no, you can't marry her. She's a moron. Are you crazy? And now I say, go ahead and marry her. Now who's got the responsibility for the decision? And when he had the responsibility, he started thinking straight. Marry her? You're crazy. She's an idiot. And all this was a power struggle. Now I want to tell you something that's very true. Whenever you get locked in a power struggle, the issue of school or church or friends or music or eating all gets obscured. If there's an issue about school, the kid doesn't think anything about education in school. He's myoptically entrapped, okay, in this control issue.